Welcome back, friends. As you can see, we're doing Godly Play today from my house. This is my worship center that I have set up so I can still share stories with you even though I'm at home. Is everybody ready? It's wonderful to see you. If everyone is ready, watch where I go to find the story. This is the desert. There were so many wonderful and important things that happened in the desert to the people of God that we need to know what it was like. Now, we can't fit our whole desert in a worship center, so this is just a little piece of the desert. The desert is a dangerous place. It's always moving, so it's hard to know where you are. There's very little water in the desert. It would be easy to get thirsty, and without water, you can die. Almost nothing grows there, so there's very little food. During the day, the sun can scorch you, and at night, it's very cold. The blowing wind can make the sand sting your skin. People wear many clothes when they go into the desert to protect themselves from the heat and the stinging sand. Desert's a dangerous place. You do not go there unless you have to. When the flood was over, the creatures went out into all four directions of the earth to fill it up with life. They often gathered along the rivers. At first, they lived in small villages, and then cities. One of the most ancient and greatest of these cities was called Ur. In the city of Ur, the people believed there were many gods. There was a god for every tree, every rock, a god for every flower. There was a god of the sky, a god of the sea, a god of the earth. The city was alive with gods. But there was one family who believed that all of God was in every place. They did not yet know this, but this is what they believed. Abram and Sarai were a part of this family. When it came time for them to move to a new place. They were not sure that God would be there, and they wondered what the new place would be like. Abram and Sarai traveled with their sheep and their donkeys and all their helpers. Even the old people and all the children went too. At night, they slept in tents. And during the day, they followed the great river called the Euphrates. It showed them the way, and it gave them water to drink for both them and their animals. It took a long, long time. Finally, they saw people coming out of Haran, and they knew that their journey was almost over. And finally, they were there. At night, Abram would walk out to the edge of the desert and would look across the sand and into the sky. And Abram would come so close to God, and God would come so close to Abram that Abram knew what God wanted him to do. He and Sarai and all of their helpers were to move on to another new place. God promised that Abram would be the member of a great family. And God promised to bless him and to make a great blessing of this family. Abram and Sarai did what God said, and they set out yet again. This time, they didn't have the great river to show them the way or give them water to drink. Finally, they came to a place called Shechem. Abram climbed a hill and prayed to God, and God was there. Abram built an altar to mark that place, and they continued on. Next, they came to a place near Bethel. And again, Abram prayed to God, and God was there too. So he built another altar to mark that place. They continued on to finally make their home in Hebron, near the oaks of Mamre. One night, God called Abram out into the desert. And Abram came so close to God, and God came so close to Abram, that Abram knew what God was saying. He said, "I will make of you the father of a great family, and and Sarai will be the mother. And there will be as many children as there are stars in the sky and grains of sand in the desert. Abram laughed. He and Sarai were very old. But he remembered God's promise. And God had them change their names anyway. Abram was to be called Abraham, the father of many, and Sarai would be called Sarah. One day, 3 strangers came out of the desert and met Abraham, who was sitting outside his tent. Abraham invited them in, and Sarah mixed 3 measures of flour, which was a lot, and they served the strangers meat and bread and milk and water, which was the custom. The 3 strangers told Abraham that he and Sarai would have a son. Sarah was standing outside the tent and heard them, and she laughed. They were too old. But do you know what happened? Abraham and Sarah had a son, and they laughed again. And so they named the baby Laughter, for in their language, laughter is Isaac. When Isaac was grown, old Sarah, who was now full of many years and very tired, died. And Abraham buried her in a cave near the oaks of Mamre. Abraham was lonely, and he missed Sarah, but he had one more thing to do. He had to find a wife for Isaac. Abraham sent his most trusted helper back to his land where he came from to find Isaac a wife. When the helper was just outside of Haran, he met a woman named Rebecca. Rebecca offered to give the helper water and to give water for his animals. Rebecca was as kind as she was courageous, and she invited the man back to her family. The helper told Rebecca all about Abraham and Sarah and the great family, and Rebecca decided that she would like to be a part of that great family. And so they traveled back to Hebron to meet Isaac. Past Shechem, past Bethel, toward Hebron. When Isaac saw them coming, he went out to meet them. Soon Isaac and Rebekah were married. And now Abraham, who was full of many years and very tired, died. And they buried him in the cave near the trees beside Sarah. Then Isaac and Rebekah had children, and their children had children, and those children had children. And this kept happening until one day your grandparents were born. And then your grandparents had your parents. your parents had you. And now we are all part of this great family, which are as many as there are stars in the sky and grains of sand in the desert. Now, I wonder which part of this story you like best. I wonder what part of this story is most important. I wonder where you are in this story, or what part of this story is about you. I wonder if there's any part of this story that we can leave out and still have all the story that we need. Thanks for wondering with me this morning or this afternoon, whenever you're watching this. It's always wonderful to be with you, even though we can't see each other in person. I miss all of you, and I look forward to when we can do this in person, but for now, I'm glad that we can be together this way. So, by now, you know that it's time to get out our work. And you can see here in my home, I have a very small studio that I can choose artwork or things to read. I have my Bible here. So I don't know what your work will be today. Only you know that. But let's get ready and we'll get started on our work. See you soon.
Hey friends. Okay. Like Teacher Andrea said, you can do whatever work you want to do today. If you want to work along with me, I'm going to be making a family tree for the great family. And here's what you need if you want to do this work with me. You need this metal bucket and these rocks. And then here's an outdoor exploration activity. Go outside and find a stick that looks a little bit like a tiny tree. This is the one that I found. You're also going to want something to color with or paint with, some glue, this twine from your kits, a hole punch, or if you don't have a hole punch, you can also use a paper clip. And you're going to want some cardstock, maybe, something to create the ornament with. I've included some cardstock in your kit. It's got these tiny figures on it. And you can use these in your design or not. It's completely up to you. So, once you found your stick, add the rocks to your bucket. And then you add your stick. The rocks help keep it upright. Okay, like that. Looks pretty good. Next, you want to create your ornament. And this week we're creating an ornament that honors Abram and Sarai, and after the call, Abraham and Sarah. The one that I made looks like this. I cut out Abram's little figure from the cardstock, and I tried just hanging him up there with a little bit of twine on his head. It didn't look that good. So what I did was I added this halo, this kind of glowing circle behind his head, and I think that that works a lot better. So this is my Abraham ornament, and I'll add that to the tree. And next, I need to make one for Sarai. So here's my little Sarah figure, and I need to create a little background for her too. So I'm taking a bit of the spare cardstock, but you can use whatever you have at home. And I'm gonna make her a little background. And then I'll glue her to it, and I'm gonna write her name over her head. Again, that's just what I decided to do. There's no rules about that. And I'm actually gonna use her name after the call. So instead of Sarai, I'm going to put Sarah. Gotta wait for this glue to dry. When the glue is done drying, I'm gonna poke a little hole here at the top, like this, with a hole punch, or maybe just that paper clip. You can get some parent help if you need it. And I'm gonna take a piece of twine and thread it through that hole to make the ornament, so I can hang it from the twig, from the stick. So here we go, Sarah's almost done. Perfect. And I'll put her here next to her husband, so they can be together. Abraham and Sarah, the beginning of our great family. I hope you guys have so much fun today doing whatever work you choose to do, and I can't wait to see what you come up with. Okay, so we're gonna move into our time for feast now, and I guess because Teacher Andrea is at home, I'll lead us in our feast. Okay, so complete your work, put away all of your stuff, gather all of your materials for feast, something to eat, something to drink, and meet me back here. Okay, see you soon. All right, friends, well, I've got my feast ready, and let's share this together. Maybe we can take the first bite together. But first, we need to say grace, right? Okay, do you want to say it? Why don't you give it a try? Okay, let's thank God for this food when you're ready. Amen. Okay, well, let's enjoy the feast together. When you've finished your feast, don't forget to clean up and then come back for this blessing. Children of God, you are so loved. And it's been such a privilege to get to worship with you today. May God bless you and keep you. May God's face shine upon you, and may God be gracious unto you and give you peace now and always. Go and have a wonderful week, my friends. See you next time.